The Wild Hunt. The phantom army that terrified Europe. On certain winter nights, people across medieval Europe did something strange. They barred their doors. They pulled their children away from windows. And when the wind began to howl across the rooftops, many refused to look into the sky because they believed something was moving above them. Not birds, not a storm, but an army. An impossible procession of riders, hounds, spirits, kings, warriors, and forgotten dead racing through the darkness between worlds. For more than 1,000 years, stories of the Wild Hunt echoed across Europe. Different cultures gave it different names. Different leaders rode at its head. Yet the warning remained remarkably similar. If you heard the horns, stay inside. If you saw the riders, pray they did not see you. Tonight we follow the trail of one of history's most enduring supernatural mysteries. From Odin and the storm gods to Celtic death hounds, cursed nobles, wandering souls, and the terrifying transformation of the hunt under Christianity. This is the story of the Wild Hunt. Long before medieval kingdoms appeared on European maps, ancient peoples already believed that certain moments of the year were dangerous. Winter occupied a special place in the imagination of early societies. The harvest had ended. Darkness lingered longer each day. Food became scarce. Livestock were slaughtered to survive until spring. It was the season when death felt closest. Among many Indo-European traditions, people believed that the boundary separating the living from the dead weakened during these cold months. Spirits could wander. Ancestors could return. Otherworldly beings could cross into the human realm. Some researchers have suggested that the deepest roots of the Wild Hunt may stretch back into these prehistoric beliefs. Bronze Age carvings discovered in Scandinavia show mysterious processions of riders, ships, and figures seemingly traveling between worlds. While no ancient inscription identifies them as the Wild Hunt, later generations interpreted similar imagery through the lens of ghostly hosts and supernatural journeys. Ancient shamanic traditions may have added another layer. Across Northern Europe, spiritual practitioners claimed to leave their bodies during visions and travel through the sky. Some rode birds, others rode animals associated with the spirit world. These journeys connected human communities with unseen realms. Centuries later, Norse traditions would describe Odin himself as mastering forms of ecstatic magic that allowed his spirit to travel while his body remained motionless. When myths, seasonal fears, ancestor worship, and spiritual journeys combined, they created fertile ground for a terrifying idea. What if entire armies of the dead traveled through the night sky? As oral traditions evolved into recorded folklore, the hunt became more organized, more vivid, and more frightening. And nowhere did it become more influential than among the Germanic peoples. In the Germanic world, the Wild Hunt was known as the Wilde Jagd. The leader was often Wotan, better known as Odin. To medieval audiences, Odin was not simply a distant god. He was a figure both respected and feared, a wanderer, a magician, a seeker of forbidden knowledge. Imagine standing beneath storm clouds rolling across a moonlit landscape. Thunder rumbles overhead. The wind suddenly changes direction. Then comes the sound of horns. Through the darkness rides a one-eyed figure wrapped in a shadowed cloak. Beneath him gallops Sleipnir, the legendary eight-legged horse capable of crossing the boundaries between worlds. Behind him comes an army, restless spirits, fallen warriors, the forgotten dead, those who never found peace. In many traditions, Odin's hunt was not random. It pursued specific prey. Souls stained by dishonor, oath breakers, wanderers who resisted their fate, the spiritually lost. His ravens, Hugin and Munin, flew ahead like scouts searching for victims. Wolves ran beside the procession. Lightning illuminated spectral faces within the storm. For people living in isolated villages, such imagery transformed ordinary winter weather into something deeply personal and terrifying. Norwegian traditions developed their own version, known as the Åsgård. Here, the riders became even more frightening. The host included people who died violent deaths, murder victims, suicides, individuals who perished unexpectedly, women who died during childbirth. Rather than finding rest, these souls were believed to ride forever across the winter sky. The Åsgård did not merely pass overhead. According to folklore, they could take people with them. Stories tell of farmers who disappeared after encountering the procession. Travelers vanished without explanation. Some legends claimed those taken by the hunt eventually returned years later, unchanged by time, as if they had spent decades in another reality. Others never returned at all. Seeing the hunt was considered one of the worst omens imaginable. It could signal plague, famine, war, or your own approaching death. If the riders crossed your path, survival depended on luck, courage, or divine protection. Many people threw themselves face down on the ground when they heard the hunt approaching. Others hid indoors and prayed. The goal was simple: do not attract attention. Because once the hunt noticed you, it rarely left empty-handed. Yet Odin was not the only leader associated with the hunt. Across Europe, regional traditions introduced new figures who transformed the myth in unexpected ways. In parts of Germany, stories focused on powerful women. One legend tells of Frau Gauden, a noblewoman obsessed with hunting. According to the tale, she declared hunting more important than heaven itself. Such arrogance demanded punishment. After death, she was condemned to ride forever. Her daughters became spectral hounds accompanying her endless chase through the night. Another famous figure was Berchta. Dressed in white and associated with winter, Berchta rewarded hardworking people while punishing laziness and dishonesty. Some stories describe her leading supernatural processions, resembling the wild hunt. Then there was Frau Hola, known in later folklore as Mother Frost. She shook snow from heavenly featherbeds and sometimes traveled with spirit hosts, crossing the winter sky. Elsewhere, the leadership changed again. Count Hackelberg became the cursed hunter. Wales looked to Gwyn ap Nudd, ruler of Annwn. Some regions claimed Cain led the procession as punishment for the first murder. England remembered King Hurla and his phantom riders. The names changed, the fear remained. Across the Celtic world, however, the hunt evolved into something uniquely haunting. Instead of Odin's riders, people feared supernatural hounds. The Welsh called them the Annwn. These were no ordinary dogs. Their fur was white as fresh snow. Their ears burned crimson red. Their voices echoed across valleys like sounds from another dimension. The hounds belonged to Annwn, ruler of Annwn, the other world. Unlike many Germanic versions, these hounds were often portrayed as agents of supernatural justice. They pursued the souls of the damned. They hunted oathbreakers. They enforced cosmic order. One detail made them especially disturbing. The closer their howls sounded, the safer you supposedly were. The farther away the cries seemed, the nearer death had actually come. It was the inversion of common sense, a supernatural warning designed to unsettle anyone who heard it. England developed its own variations. In Yorkshire, people spoke of the Gabriel hounds and the Gabble ratchets. These spectral dogs appeared as chaotic swarms racing through the night. Their barking foretold tragedy, a death in the village, a coming disaster, an approaching misfortune. Further south emerged one of England's most famous supernatural hunters, Herne the Hunter. According to legend, Herne haunted Windsor Forest. Descriptions portray him wearing antlers and leading ghostly animals through the woods. Unlike Odin, Herne began as a mortal. One version claims he served the royal court before falling into disgrace. After his mysterious death, sightings began. Travelers reported hearing hunting horns among the trees. Others claimed they saw a dark rider racing beneath ancient branches, accompanied by spectral hounds. Whether noble servant, forest spirit, or transformed ghost, Herne became one of England's most enduring supernatural figures. Scotland contributed another terrifying variation: the Sluag. Rather than mounted hunters, the Sluag were restless hosts of unforgiven dead. People imagined them moving through the sky like enormous flocks of dark birds. Their purpose was simple: to seize souls. Families feared them so intensely that west-facing windows were often closed when someone lay dying. The belief held that the Sluag approached from the west and might steal a soul before it reached peace. Across Celtic lands, supernatural pursuit became a form of cosmic justice. The guilty were hunted, the wicked were pursued. The dead were never entirely gone. Yet Europe was not alone in creating such stories. The idea spread astonishingly far. In France, tales evolved into traditions later carried to North America. One famous example became known as the chasse-galerie. French-Canadian lumberjacks supposedly made bargains with the devil to fly home in enchanted canoes during Christmas. The agreement came with strict rules: no blasphemy, no touching church steeples, no breaking the pact. Failure meant eternal damnation. The image differed from Odin's riders, yet the core theme remained unchanged. A supernatural journey through the night, with terrible consequences awaiting those who broke the rules. Eastern Europe produced its own variations. In Poland, stories described the dziki gon, the wild chase. Spectral hunters pursued souls through frozen forests. Sometimes their prey included witches, sometimes wandering spirits, sometimes the dead themselves. Russian traditions featured ghostly riders and spirit armies crossing the heavens during storms. These narratives merged local folklore with broader wild hunt themes, creating new forms of supernatural pursuit. Italy added another fascinating chapter. Ancient Roman traditions associated nighttime processions with Diana. Groups of women were said to travel alongside the goddess through the darkness. When Christianity spread, these stories changed dramatically. What had once been sacred became suspicious. What had once been divine became dangerous. This transformation would eventually reshape the wild hunt itself. Even coastal communities adapted the myth. Instead of riders, some imagined ghostly ships sailing across storm clouds. The drowned dead became spectral sailors. The hunt moved from land to sky and sea simultaneously. Different forms, same fear. Something from another world was crossing into ours. Remarkably, similar concepts appeared far beyond Europe. In Hawaii, people feared the night marchers. These phantom warriors announced their arrival with drums and conch shells. Witnesses risked death if caught in their path. In Japan, legends described the Hyaki Yagyo, the night parade of 100 demons. Monsters and spirits swept through the darkness in enormous supernatural processions. Although culturally distinct, these traditions reveal something remarkable. Human beings across the world repeatedly imagined armies of spirits traveling through the night. Why? That question leads us to one of the most important transformations in the hunt's history: the arrival of Christianity. When Christianity spread across Europe, church leaders faced a difficult challenge. The wild hunt was already deeply embedded in local culture. People believed in it. They feared it. They shared stories about it generation after generation. Eliminating the belief entirely proved nearly impossible. So the church chose a different strategy: reinterpretation. Odin gradually changed from divine wanderer into demonic figure. Spirit hosts became armies of the damned. Otherworldly journeys became warnings about sin and eternal punishment. A mythological procession transformed into evidence of hell. This adaptation served practical purposes. It aligned local folklore with Christian teachings. It reinforced moral behavior, provided explanations for strange experiences people continued reporting. The church did not tell communities that they heard nothing during storms. Instead, it said, "You heard something." But what you heard was not a god. It was the devil. One influential text, the Canon Episcopi, condemned beliefs involving nighttime rides with supernatural female figures, such as Diana. According to church authorities, participants were not experiencing genuine divine journeys. They were victims of demonic deception. Yet older traditions refused to disappear completely. Many communities continued preserving elements of pre-Christian mythology. Odin's wisdom survived in fragments. Ancient spirit beliefs blended with Christian imagery. Saints occasionally replaced pagan gods as leaders of supernatural hosts. The result was a unique hybrid tradition, part pagan memory, part Christian warning, entirely unforgettable. Centuries later, scholars began examining the wild hunt more closely. Among them was Jacob Grimm. Today he is remembered for collecting fairy tales, alongside his brother Wilhelm. But Grimm was also an important folklorist. He believed the hunt may once have represented something more positive, perhaps an ancient procession of gods, perhaps a blessing-bearing host. Only later, he argued, did Christian reinterpretation transform it into a terrifying march of the damned. Modern researchers continue debating these possibilities. Some suggest the hunt emerged from observations of violent winter storms. Thunder sounded like hooves, wind resembled barking hounds, lightning illuminated moving clouds. In a world without modern meteorology, supernatural explanations felt entirely reasonable. Others focus on psychology. Carl Jung suggested recurring mythic images reveal deep archetypes within the human mind. From this perspective, the wild hunt represents humanity confronting death, chaos, fate, and forces beyond individual control. Whether viewed through religion, folklore, weather, or psychology, the hunt remains powerful because it addresses universal fears, and its influence never vanished. During the 19th century, artists revived the imagery. Painters filled canvases with spectral riders racing across storm-darkened skies. Among the most famous was Peter Nicolai Arbo, whose dramatic depictions helped define the modern visual image of the wild hunt. Writers drew inspiration from the same themes. Goethe's works explored supernatural pursuit and unavoidable doom. Richard Wagner infused related motifs into operatic storytelling. The hunt entered modern fantasy as well. The ringwraiths of Tolkien carry echoes of phantom riders. The wild hunt appears directly within The Witcher. Comics, films, novels, and games continue reimagining the ancient legend. Whenever storytellers need an unstoppable supernatural force, the hunt rides again. But its survival cannot be explained solely through entertainment. The deeper reason lies within the fears that created it. For most of human history, winter was genuinely dangerous. Food shortages were common. Disease spread easily. Travel became hazardous, Death seemed closer than at any other season. The Wild Hunt transformed those anxieties into narrative form. It gave shape to uncertainty. It turned random tragedy into meaningful story. It offered explanations when none existed. Why did someone disappear? The hunt took them. Why did dogs bark at empty darkness? The riders were passing overhead. Why did disaster arrive without warning? The horns had already sounded. The legend also reinforced social values. Honor mattered. Promises mattered. Generosity mattered. Communities survived through cooperation. Folklore reminded people of those expectations through unforgettable imagery. Behave well, or risk joining the hunt. Most importantly, the Wild Hunt forced people to confront mortality. Every version, whether led by Odin, Annwn, Herne, Diana, demons, or ghostly kings, circles the same fundamental truth. Death is always near. No one escapes forever. The riders eventually come for everyone. Perhaps that is why the story still resonates. Beneath centuries of mythology stands a universal human experience, fear of the unknown, fear of judgment, fear of what waits beyond the horizon of life. And yet there is fascination as well, because the hunt does not merely represent death. It represents mystery, the possibility that another world exists just beyond sight, a realm occasionally revealed through storms, darkness, and ancient stories. That possibility continues to captivate us today. So the next time winter winds rattle your windows and distant sounds echo through the night, remember the generations who listened to those same noises and imagined something extraordinary moving overhead. An army of spirits, a host of forgotten souls, a phantom hunt racing between worlds. And perhaps ask yourself one final question. If you heard hunting horns on a clear winter night, would you hide, or would you dare to look?